Hello and welcome to Weapons and Warfare. For Straight Arrow News, I'm your host, Ryan Robertson. Just ahead on this week's episode, as military leadership continues to reshape and reimagine how America will fight in future conflicts, so are the tools they'll take with them. This week, we look at what could be the next evolution in computing power in the battle space. We'll tell you why this little box packs such a powerful punch. Plus, see how one company is able to rapidly respond to the military's need for new hardware. And in our comms check, an update to some big plans for the Air Force's future. But first, some headlines you may have missed. A pilot is recovering following the crash of an F-35 Lightning on takeoff at Albuquerque's International Sunport. According to a spokesperson for the city's fire department, the pilot, who was taken to a hospital with serious injuries, was able to escape after crashing on a hillside south of the city's airport. Lockheed Martin identified the plane as an F-35 that left their Fort Worth, Texas facility earlier that day and was headed to Edwards Air Force Base in California. A spokesperson for Lockheed said in an email to the Associated Press that the fighter jet crashed after the pilot stopped to refuel at the adjacent Kirtland Air Force Base in New Mexico. That accident comes on the heels of a new report from the Government Accountability Office showing the F-35 program continues to be hampered by various delays and rising costs. Among their main findings, the expected cost for the Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps to maintain the F-35 program over the next 6 decades is now expected to exceed $2 trillion over the lifetime of the fleet. The GAO also found F-35s already in service are not meeting most performance goals, including those for availability, for reliability, and maintainability. That's according to DoD and contractor data. Among 6 key challenges for the program are a heavy reliance on contractors, a lack of spare parts, and inadequate training related to maintenance. The DoD currently has about 630 F-35s, with plans to buy about 1,800 more and intends to use them through 2088. For a full look at the report, you can find a link in the description of this episode. Pentagon officials telling reporters the U.S.-built temporary pier taking humanitarian aid to starving Palestinians will be removed from the coast of Gaza to be repaired after getting damaged in rough seas. The pier is one of the few ways that food, water, and other supplies are getting to Palestinians, who the UN says are on the brink of famine amid the nearly 8-month-old war between Israel and Hamas.
The Trident Pier will be removed from its anchored position on the coast and towed back to Ashdod, where U.S. Central Command will conduct repairs. The rebuilding and repairing of the pier will take at least over a week, and following completion will need to be re-anchored to the coast of Gaza.
The setback is the latest for the $320 million project, which began operating in mid-May. The pier system is anchored into the beach and provided a long causeway for trucks to drive aid onto the shore. And an Air Force Academy grad was nominated by President Joe Biden to become the school's next superintendent. If confirmed by the U.S. Senate, Lieutenant General Tony Borenfeind will take over for Lieutenant General Richard Clark in directing the Academy's undergraduate academic program that leads to a Bachelor of Science degree and a commission as a second lieutenant. Borenfeind is currently the commander of the Air Force Special Operations Command. He graduated from the Academy in 1991. Buzzwords. The military, like the corporate world, has their buzzwords. Listen to leadership talk, and soon enough, words like austere, integration, and battle space roll off the tongue as easily as words like synergy, bandwidth, and yes, even the word disruptor. But what are they really talking about? In essence, they're talking about the way they see the nature of future conflicts. For example, in December, we reported for Straight Arrow News the Air Force is rebuilding an airfield used to launch the nuclear attacks on Japan during World War II, reclaiming Tinian Island's North Field from the jungle just in case it's needed in a conflict with China. Some of you may be wondering where Tinian Islands is, and it's right about here in the middle of the Philippine Sea. The North Field, as the name implies, is on the north side of the island, and this is all about 2,000 miles from the coast of China. Needless to say, there's not a lot of infrastructure there. It is, in a word, austere. Operating in those kinds of conditions is what Secretary of the Air Force Frank Kendall talked about in February at the AFA Warfare Symposium.
We need fully capable units with all the assets they need to fight China or possibly Russia on short or no notice.
Whether it's flying sorties or deploying reconnaissance troops, operators in the field in places like Tinian Island will need tools like the one introduced by Cubic Defense at Soft Week 2024. Officially called the D-Tech Fusion Edge High Performance Compute, or EHPC, they also refer to it simply as the box.
So if you think back in my time frame, it took racks and racks. It took probably 3 or 4 trucks to do what, hauling racks of servers around to do what this one box will do for the future warfighter that's out there. It's good kit. It's good kit.
People involved with the project tell us the box provides the muscle to not only run a remote command and control operation, but also take data produced by whatever tools are in use and put that information into a format that allows those on the ground to make better informed decisions.
It's about converging data, translating that into intelligence, and then delivering that to a decision maker in a timely manner so they can make the right decisions. And that's what this does.
Retired Lieutenant General James Terry is the Vice President of Business Development and Strategy for Cubic Defense. He's also the former commander of U.S. Army Central Command. He says this hardware is built for the evolving nature of combat.
This is going to be exactly what those warfighters are going to need out there at those levels. It's exciting, very exciting.
For the tech-minded, or if you want to impress your kids that use gaming PCs, this single-case solution is fitted with an NVIDIA GPU processor to support artificial intelligence and machine learning. It also has 512 gigabytes of ultra-fast memory and 25 gigabits of networking. And oh yeah, it has 8 slots of removable hard drives that offer up to a petabyte worth of storage. If you're trying to do the math, that's 1,000 terabytes, and graphic designer Dakota Patillo says that's all very impressive. Even with all of that, Terry says what this comes down to is properly equipping the people making important decisions.
We haven't taken humans out of the loop yet. We're not quite to autonomous machines. So as long as there's a human in that loop, he's going to have to make a decision. That needs to be a quality decision. This box will crunch all that data if you apply some AI to it, sort through it, parse it, and then deliver it directly to that commander.
So what commander is going to get their hands on the EHPC first? That remains to be seen. While Cubic Defense currently has several government contracts, there is no official word on a buyer for their newest piece of tech. When that happens, we'll let you know.
Serving you clarity through context, our mission at SAN is to deliver the news straight down the middle. We're different from mainstream media because we spotlight distorted headlines and show you how to do it too. Discover stories that right and left-leaning outlets are choosing not to cover by using our Media Mist tool. Download the SAN app and turn on notifications to have straight facts delivered right to your phone or tablet, and get straight facts anytime at san.com.
Time now for our weapon of the week, and rather than taking a deep dive on a specific firearm or the latest innovation in drone technology, we're focusing on a long-time defense contractor, Science Applications International Corporation, or as they're more commonly known, SAIC. In the simplest terms, they're problem solvers. For example, if the Navy needs something to help it defend ships against Houthi drone attacks in the Red Sea, or the Army needs a vehicle that can handle rough terrain as well as be a platform for a variety of technologies, but it's needed yesterday,
you don't have time to wait on traditional, defense acquisition, right? So you have to be able to move fast, agilely, and get something out quick that's proven, tested, and can deliver results. And that's what we represent.
At Sea Airspace 2024, I had a chance to visit with Jeremy Davidson, a systems engineering director, and he walked me through how SAIC is able to meet the military's immediate needs.
We try to keep an ecosystem, a collaborative ecosystem, both with partners on the business side, but also partners that represent edge systems like you see on this vehicle here. As of today, we've got about 30 partners that represent 40 to 45 different technologies.
The vehicle he referenced is a Polaris Razor, built out to help ground troops eliminate drone threats.
What you're seeing up top is an RF detector and an RF effector, i.e. a jammer. It's supplied by our partner Drone Shield. Okay. They supply a lot of RF detection and RF affecting equipment. All of their product line is completely integrated, so they're one of our ecosystem partners that we lean on a lot. As we continue around, you're seeing a product from Defend. It's called the Enforce Air. This is actually what they call a cyber takeover. So if I see drones that are operating, I know immediately if I can take it over, and I can actually take it over and control the drone myself. And that allows the user to choose what they do with it. They can either land it, bring it to them, land it in a safe spot, send it back to where it came from. But at that point, it breaks all communication with the actual original hand controller, and it now owns it.
Part of SAIC's approach is looking at the entire scope of a request and anticipating how the threat might evolve.
So being able to pair sensors and sensor data, cameras, laser designators, and non-kinetics, as well as kinetics, small arms, rockets, anything like that, into the same ecosystem, into the same user experience with interoperability is super key, because you don't know what kind of threat you're going to run into. So you need a solution for all threat types.
All right, everyone, time now for Comms Check, and this week we're following up on a story we first brought to you back in February. It was at the AFA's Warfare Symposium in Colorado that the Air Force announced big plans for reoptimization, with an eye on potential conflicts with both China and/or Russia. Among the plans unveiled by Air Force Chief of Staff General David Alvin was the introduction of air task forces that will test new methods to generate more efficient, integrated, and deployable combat wings. The main idea is that when a wing is deployed to a forward operating location, they already have everything they need to operate. No more adding airmen from different units from across the Air Force.
When you think of what the wings do, they deploy parts of the wing and they execute the mission that they're told. If we're talking about agile combat employment, we need to have a wing that knows how to do that as a wing. And that is the difference between how we've been presenting combat power of presenting squadrons and then crowdsourcing the rest. We're not training together. So that's why this is important, is because the manner in which we expect to employ them is going to be so much different from what we're doing right now.
And we now know what bases will be putting these new concepts into action. Davis-Monthan, Scott, Joint Base San Antonio, Dyess, Fairchild, and Seymour Johnson. In a release announcing the bases, General Alvin called it the first significant change to Air Force deployments in more than 2 decades.
All opinions expressed in this segment are solely the opinions of the contributors.
All right, folks, we are just about out of time for this episode of Weapons and Warfare. And for my wrap this week, I'm going to share a story from my personal life that sort of struck me as a good metaphor for some of the stuff happening in our world right now. So I live in Iowa, and in front of my house, there's an old ash tree that is infested with a beetle called the Emerald Ash Borer, EAB. Basically, they suck and they kill ash trees. Now, the initial infestation happened before we moved into the house, so it's too late for us to really fix the root cause. What we're left with is a tree that's half dead, will be fully dead at some point in the next couple of years, and is presenting a bunch of potential problems. Limbs could fall on someone walking by. A strong enough gust of wind could send the tree or parts of it flying through my house, or another in the neighborhood. Don't know if you know this, but Iowa does get pretty windy. All that to say, the tree is a problem. I know it's a problem, and the longer I do nothing, the worse it's going to get, and the more dangerous it is, not just for me, but really anyone close to it. In the story of this tree, I see similarities with situations taking place around the world. Obviously, there's Ukraine. Russia started taking Ukrainian territory 10 years ago. We knew it was a problem, but the world didn't really want to deal with it at the time. Sort of like the previous owners of my house who could have treated the ash tree, but for whatever reason, didn't. The initial infestation was allowed to fester, and now entire Ukrainian cities are reduced to rubble. In Israel, it was a known fact Hamas was preparing for some sort of major operation, but the threat was not taken seriously enough and so never dealt with accordingly. Now, Israel is finding out it's much harder to root out the problem once its network is established. My point is, eventually, someone has to deal with the problems. At some point, the adults in the room need to take some responsibility, make the difficult decision, and deal with the problem head on. Stop kicking it down the road for someone else to solve, or worse yet, acting like it doesn't even exist in the first place. I did not plant that ash tree, and I was not the one to stand idly by at a time when I could have prevented the infestation, but it's my responsibility now. Whether it's Russia invading Ukraine, or Hamas attacking Israel, or China threatening to take Taiwan, the series of events that led to those things all started generations ago. But now, it's time to deal with those problems before they cause any more unnecessary harm. For senior producer Brett Baker, video editor Brian Spencer, and graphics designer Dakota Patillo, I'm Ryan Robertson with Straight Arrow News, signing off.